Hey everybody! So in this video we're going to go over the sample compare-contrast essay, Singapore and Trinidad, that you had to read for homework last week. So this essay is an example of a compare-contrast essay that uses the point-by-point approach. That is an important element to keep in mind because for the final exam essay, as I've mentioned, you're going to have to choose either your evaluation paragraph or your compare-contrast paragraph and expand on those ideas and turn it into a full essay. If you choose to do the compare-contrast paragraph and turn that into an essay, you're going to need to decide, am I using the one side at a time approach, which I discussed in the previous video, or am I going to use the point-by-point approach? So we're going to go through this essay. We're going to look first at just the basic essay elements and the questions that you had to answer. Then we're also going to look at how the essay is organized in terms of comparing and contrasting. Okay, so you were asked first how the introductory paragraph grabs our attention, and it does that by asking a question. So the very first sentence, in the middle of the cold Canadian winters, have you ever thought about escaping to somewhere warm to get away from all the cold and snow? Questions are a great way to grab your reader's attention. Then they introduce the topic. They specifically start talking about Singapore and Trinidad, and then they lead us to their thesis statement. So what exactly is this essay going to do? It's the very last sentence of the introductory paragraph. The geography, people, and food of both Singapore and Trinidad show many similarities, yet many differences as well. So we know that they're going to be comparing and contrasting these two places. We know they're going to share with us some things they have in common, but that they're going to focus on the differences. Question 3 asked, does the thesis statement include a plan of development? It does. Remember, plan of development just refers to the main points. Does the thesis statement tell us what the main points are going to be in the rest of the essay? This one does. What are those main points? What is the plan of development? The geography, people, and food. Right? So then we looked at topic sentences. First body paragraph. The sentence that tells us exactly what that paragraph is about is, of course, the very first sentence, because that's where a topic sentence should always appear. And that topic sentence is, first, there are many similarities and differences between the geography of Singapore and Trinidad. We know exactly what the paragraph is going to do. Second body paragraph, in addition to geography, the people of Singapore and Trinidad share many things in common, but each still retain their unique differences as well. We know exactly what that paragraph is going to be about. Finally, the food of Singapore and Trinidad are quite similar in many ways, yet they each remain distinct from each other. So we know what that third body paragraph is going to be about, the food. Those body paragraphs also contained transitions in the topic sentences. Going back to the first body paragraph, it says, first, there are many similarities and differences about the geography. The word first lets us know that we are indeed starting with the first main point now. There's no more background information, there's nothing else. We went from the introductory paragraph, and the very next paragraph begins discussing the first main point. The next body paragraph, it says, in addition to geography, the people of Singapore and Trinidad share many things in common, blah, blah, blah. So, in addition to geography is the transition that reminds us of where we just came from, lets us know we're moving on to something new. And then it follows it up with what that new thing is, the people. The third body paragraph says, finally, the food of Singapore and Trinidad are quite similar in many ways, blah, blah, blah. The word finally lets us know that we have moved on to the next main point, and that it is the last main point. What is the last main point? The food. Does a very nice job of not only focusing our attention in each paragraph so that we know exactly what that paragraph is going to be about, but it guides us through the whole essay with those transitions. The transitions not only remind us of where we just were, but it also lets us know that we are, in fact, moving on to the next main point. We don't have to guess. Is this a new main point? Is this something different? Is this still part of what they were talking about before? It's very clear. We don't have to guess. We know exactly where we are at all times as we move through the essay. The concluding paragraph reminds us of the main points that were made, right? It mentions, again, that they share a lot of similarities and differences in terms of the geography, the people, and the food. It mentions all of that. The final thought it leaves us with is, if you are still thinking about escaping the cold Canadian winters, it takes us back to the intro, right? Remember the question it started with? It comes full circle. They're ending the essay by bringing us back to that question. So if you are still thinking about escaping the cold Canadian winters to a tropical island paradise, you have to make sure you visit, because Singapore and Trinidad both have a distinct and vibrant culture that you must experience. Final thought. So definitely contains all of those essay elements that really have to be there for it to be a good, strong essay. But let's look at this essay in terms of being compare and contrast essay. So again, it uses the point-by-point approach. So in this case, they had 3 distinct elements that they wanted to look at for both places. So they decided to go through each one separately and discuss the similarities and differences together in each main point. So we start with the geography. Then they tell us some of the similarities that Singapore and Trinidad share in terms of geography, but then they shift and focus our attention on the differences. And the differences are still paired up. They still match. Singapore is located in Southeast Asia, close to Malaysia and Indonesia, while Trinidad is located on the Caribbean, off the coast of South America, near Venezuela. So that's the first difference, where they're located. But it tells us where each one is located. Then, although both island nations, Trinidad's land area is about 7 times as large as Singapore's. Right? So, how big they are. And it mentions both. Trinidad is also more mountainous, while Singapore is relatively flat. Right? So, it gives us both. In addition to the geography, the people of Singapore. And again, it goes through what they share in common, and then focuses our attention to the differences. And it all matches up. The food tells us about some similarities, but then focuses us on the differences and matches everything up. So when you choose the point-by-point approach, it's a little easier to make sure that you're covering all your bases. You have your first main point. You're going to talk about that main point in terms of topic A and that main point in terms of topic B. You're covering it all right there. When you do the one side at a time approach, if you remember, I said it's easy to sometimes lose sight of what you did in the first section to make sure you do the same thing in the second section. When you use the point-by-point approach, it makes it so much easier. That's not to deter you from using the one side at a time approach, because sometimes it does make more sense. But you just have to be more mindful of making sure that you're covering the same ideas in both sections. When you do point by point, that's taken care of. What you have to be mindful of in this approach, though, is to make sure you discuss both sides fully in each main point. So, for instance, when we're talking about the geography of Singapore and Trinidad, whatever ideas we're going to include in that main point, we can't just talk about Singapore and not really talk about Trinidad. We have to talk about both. So everything has to be balanced and equal. Does that make sense? I hope so. So if you choose the point-by-point approach, just make sure that you are fully discussing both topics in each main point. You don't want to leave anything unbalanced. Okay? All right, so if you have any questions, let me know. But again, this is a great example of a compare-contrast essay that uses the point-by-point approach. If you think that's what you're going to do for your final exam essay, use this as an example to help you structure your essay, right? All right, you guys are free to move on to the next item in the module.